All right, we're talking to Father Jack Ashcraft. Father Jack Ashcraft, give us that website one more time, because I think people definitely should check out what you're talking about.
Okay, it's www.trueexorcist.com. You'll find lots of articles there and other things, everything from culture and politics to cults, the occult, theology, you name it.
Now, since you've been on, I mean, we've been with you for the entire hour so far. Since you've been on, we've been getting a lot of messages about exorcisms. Ask them about exorcisms, and this is what I want to do. We're going to do that, but since there's so much interest in that, evidently, which kind of scares me, by the way. I don't know what's going through the mind of you listeners, but since there's so much interest in that, we'll have to have you on just to talk about that, and we'll do a whole hour devoted to that. But you said something that's very interesting that I want to get back to, since we're talking about how the political side, the societal side, and the influence of the occult is really playing out. You said about the Pope in the last segment, the so-called Pope. That kind of struck me as interesting, since you are Father Jack Ashcraft. Do you not agree that this is the Pope?
No, I do not. He is what we would call an anti-Pope. As a response to the Second Vatican Council and the modernism that issued forth from that, the false teachings, the false practices, there was a response by certain members of the clergy, including a Cardinal Ottaviani, to the changes that the Second Vatican Council was implementing, demonstrating how they undermined the faith, they undermined the foundation of the gospel of Christ, and they literally created a new religion. And by way of demonstrating that, it's interesting to note that the new Mass that is celebrated in most of what are called Catholic churches today is called the Novus Ordo Missae, the New Order Mass. Kind of interesting, that little bit of connection. Yes, it is actually called the Novus Ordo Missae. So, a growing number of clergy responded by saying, we do not accept these changes, we are not going in this direction, and as a matter of fact, the Pope who is agreeing to this has become a manifest heretic, and we cannot agree that he is the Pope any longer. And thus was born a movement called Sede Vacantism. Sede meaning the seat, vacante meaning vacant. In other words, the seat of the Bishop of Rome is empty. There is no Bishop of Rome. From John the 23rd, who was a Freemason, which automatically excommunicated him, down to Frankenpope, or Pope Francis if you prefer, none of these men are Catholic, and none of these men can even claim to be Christians in any sense of the word. They are modernists, they are heretics, they are globalists, they're relativists. And so when I say the so-called Pope, it's because of that. The fact of the matter is, there is grave doubt, and Catholics listening to this need to understand, there is grave doubt that any of these men, ordained or consecrated, using the Novus Ordo rites, is even valid. In other words, the priest in your parish might not even be a valid priest. He might be a layman just like you. So what you have,
talk about taking a vow of celibacy for no good reason, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there are even Novus Ordo Catholics, people who are in the present Catholic Church and who think he's the Pope, who have started to be a little disturbed by the things that Frankenpope is saying, with good reason. The things he is saying are patented relativism. Atheists going to heaven, even talking about homosexuality is accepted etc. I mean, these are all the logical ends of the Second Vatican Council. So there are a lot of us.
Would you say then? I mean, because I'm. Hold on one second, just because we're running out of time, and I'm not a Catholic, so these are honest questions. Would you say then, because of the direction that it's going, and because of the occupancy of that position by somebody who is evidently not qualified to hold that position, that it's of a satanic influence? Because I would think if I was Satan, man, that would be a great coup d'etat right there to put somebody who's not qualified in that seat.
Even Paul VI, who was a heretic himself, at the conclusion of the Second Vatican Council, he proclaimed, and I encourage your listeners to go look this up and you'll find out it's true, he proclaimed, the smoke of Satan has entered the church.
Wow.
Pretty serious proclamation.
So do we see this current pope leading people in a satanic way? I mean, as an exorcist who's been doing this for a long time, do you see similarities between what the current pope or Franken pope is doing and what you see in symbology or acting out in the demonic realm?
I will say this, that Francis is promoting the same agenda that the progressives are, the same agenda that the globalists are. And the globalists and the progressives have a foundational philosophy rooted in occultism. Therefore, I would say anyone who remains in the Novus Ordo Church, who continues to follow the hierarchy of the Novus Ordo, their souls are in danger because they are following the program of Satan at this point. Absolutely.
So you referenced that some of at the local parish, so some of our listeners, their local priest might not be a priest. Is the Pope qualified to be a priest? I don't know his history. So does he qualify, or is he not really?
He was ordained in the Novus Ordo rites. So the chances are he is not even a valid priest, which means he cannot be a bishop, which means he cannot be the Pope. Wow. Beyond that, even if he were validly ordained, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Even if he were validly ordained, by virtue of his teachings and their extreme departure from traditional Christian doctrine and morals and ethics, he is no longer a Christian. He's become a false teacher. He's a heretic. And again, the Catholic faithful it would behoove them not to follow him and not to recognize him.
So what do you make of, then, his rapid popularity growth? I mean, he's kind of like the I don't want to say second coming because of the obvious overtone there, but he's rallying Catholics.
Well, yeah, look at the Catholics he's rallying, though, and look at the people who are lauding him. It's the progressive media who loves him. It's the gay lobby who loves him. You're not looking at Christians who are seeking to be faithful to the teachings of the gospel, faithful to the teachings of the church. What you're seeing are the radical elements of the church who are flocking to this man, and the radical elements in media and society who are supporting this man. So, of course, he's going to have a degree of popularity. Keep in mind, Adolf Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine and was lauded by the progressives as well. It was only when the Holocaust became known to the rest of the world that they tried to recast him as a right-wing extremist when, in fact, he was a leftist. He was one of their own. So you're seeing the same sort of thing play out with Francis. These people are lauding him because he's promoting their agenda, which is the globalist progressive agenda.
Should we be afraid of the power that he's starting to accumulate then?
Absolutely. He is attempting to pull in elements of orthodoxy. He is attempting to erode the sovereignty of state of Israel. He's a very real and very frightening player on the world scene.
Well, Father Jack Ashcraft, it has been a pleasure. We're going to have you back on soon, sir. The website, trueexorcist.com. Folks, that does it for today. Remember, no victim, no crime. Look into jury nullification. Today, tomorrow, and as always, may your path lead to heaven, and may freedom follow in your footsteps.